Walk into a human campsite 30 millennia ago and a subtle, unsettling feeling takes hold. It isn't a sense of danger. It is an eerie realization that whispers a single question into the quiet air. Where is everyone? More precisely, where are the elders? Looking around, you see an overwhelming abundance of children. Toddlers dash past the crackling fire, chasing sparks into the night. Young boys and girls sit closely beside adults, intently mimicking their movements. Teenagers test their strength, practicing the brutal skills required to stay alive while young parents cradle infants in the shadows. The entire gathering feels impossibly young, far younger than any community you have ever stepped foot in. It feels intuitive, matching the statistics we often hear repeated. Ancient humans rarely made it past 30. Sometimes the estimate drops to 25. Either way, the grim narrative remains unchanged. Prehistoric life was short, savage, and unforgiving. It paints a picture of a species barely reaching maturity before old age drags them into the earth. Yet this widely accepted statistic is deeply deceptive. To uncover the truth, we must step directly into their world. Morning arrives. You stir just before dawn breaks over the horizon. The embers from last night still cast a faint amber glow on the damp ground. The band begins to wake, and instantly a collective focus shifts toward a singular, relentless objective: survival. Food must be fresh water must be carried back. The vulnerable must be guarded, and the changing sky must be watched for incoming storms. There are no safety nets, no storehouses overflowing with grain to rely on when times get tough. Everything hinges entirely on what the group can scavenge, hunt, and carry on their backs. Every single step out into the wilderness carries an invisible death sentence. Take something as mundane as a minor cut. If you slice your hand preparing dinner today, it is a minor inconvenience. You wash it under running water, apply an antiseptic, wrap it in a bandage, and forget it within a week. 30,000 years ago, that exact same scratch could trigger a quiet countdown. The wound festers. A burning fever sets in. No one understands why the skin turns red and hot. No one can see the microscopic battle raging inside. Your companions can keep the fire burning, offer a splash of water, and pray to the spirits. Beyond that, they are helpless. Today, we view antibiotics as a basic right. For nearly the entire human story, they did not exist. Without them, simple infections wiped out entire generations. Then comes the hunger. Imagine a hunt falls short. It is a disappointing evening. Imagine the next day yields nothing either. Anxiety begins to ripple through the camp. A third failure shifts the atmosphere entirely. The children are crying from hunger. The hunters are draining their precious energy. No one knows when the next herd will pass through. Even successful hunts demand a heavy toll. The beasts our ancestors tracked were not helpless targets. A cornered deer strikes with lethal hooves. A wild boar can rip through flesh with sharp tusks. Megafauna can easily crush a human hunter. The skeletal remains left behind tell a violent story, bearing the marks of deep fractures, shattered limbs, and severe trauma that healed imperfectly. Reaching an advanced age was an extraordinary feat of endurance. The threat did not just lurk within a festering wound or a charging animal. It waited patiently beyond the tree line, in the tall, swaying grass, deep within the darkness where the firelight could not reach. For the vast majority of our history, humans did not rule the apex of the food chain. The very species that would one day construct sprawling metropolises, eradicate smallpox, and leave footprints on the lunar surface spent hundreds of thousands of years running for their lives. Lions, leopards, hyenas, and wolves viewed us as prey. Some scientists argue that our innate terror of snakes, spiders, and the dark isn't a random quirk of psychology. It is an ancient memory burned into our genetic code over thousands of generations. The sudden jolt of adrenaline you feel when a shadow moves at night is an echo of a real predator that hunted your ancestors while they slept. Then there was the gauntlet of childbirth. Today, we welcome new life with celebration. For most of history, it was a dance with death. A complicated labor meant a dead infant, a dead mother, or both. As human brains evolved to be larger, the pelvic anatomy created one of the most perilous biological bottlenecks in nature. Every human alive today is a miracle of an unbroken chain of mothers who survived that ordeal. By now, the low life expectancy numbers feel completely justified. With so many forces working against them, it seems obvious that barely anyone saw their hair turn gray. We assume ancient camps were populated strictly by the young. But this is where the conventional narrative shatters. Ancient humans did not suddenly drop dead the moment they hit 30. If an individual managed to survive the perils of early childhood, living to 50, 60, or 70 was not uncommon. Consider a simple mathematical model. Imagine a small clan of 10 children. 5 of them succumbed to disease or harsh winters before their second birthday. The remaining 5 live long, full lots, passing away at 60. What is the average lifespan of this group? It is 31 years old, yet not a single person in that clan actually died at 31. Half died as infants. The other half died as elders. The mathematical average tells a factual truth, but it paints an entirely false reality. This is the statistical trap of ancient life expectancy data. When researchers calculate these averages, they factor in every birth, including the devastatingly high numbers of infant deaths. Childhood was a meat grinder. That is the missing context. The low average wasn't because 30-year-old adults were dying of old age. It was because millions of children never got the chance to grow up. Today, modern medicine ensures over 99% of infants survive their vulnerable early years. To our ancestors, that statistic would sound like sorcery. Anthropologists studying isolated modern hunter-gatherer societies regularly observe child mortality rates that are deeply shocking. In many ancestral settings, a third of all children died before puberty. In some environments, it approached half. Think of a modern classroom with 30 students. Now, imagine erasing 15 of them from the seats. Not because their parents moved to a different city, but because they simply did not survive the winter. That was the brutal reality our ancestors woke up to every morning. Parents carried that grief. Communities bore that weight, yet the human spirit endured. They still shared laughter around the fire, fell in love under the stars, and played. If you beat the odds and cross the threshold into adulthood, you learn the subtle warning signs of the forest. Which berries brought nourishment, the scales of survival balanced out. This is why archaeologists continuously lived well into their 60s and 70s. These seniors were not anomaly. In fact, elders may have been humanity's ultimate evolutionary advance. A 20-year-old hunter has never seen the rivers dry up, but a 60-year-old grandmother remembers. She remembers the last grain. She knows which hidden springs still trickle beneath the rocks, which trails lead to seasonal waterholes, and which plants remain safe to eat when the vegetation withers. This critical survival data wasn't written down anywhere because writing had not been invented. There were no maps, no libraries, no digital archives. The collective knowledge of the entire human race existed solely within the folds of human memory. An elder was a living library. Lose one, and an entire archive of survival strategies vanished forever. Old age wasn't a burden to be managed by the tribe. It was an invaluable resource that kept everyone else alive. Some evolutionary biologists believe this is precisely why humans evolved to have lifespans that extend far past our reproductive years. Grandparents provided crucial childcare and passed down deep-time knowledge, tilting the survival odds in favor of the youth. The popular image of a primitive world where everyone died young is fundamentally flawed. Ancient societies were multi-generational, just like ours, composed of toddlers, teenagers, parents, and wise elders. The difference lies entirely in how many lives were cut short before they ever had a chance to age. The tragedy of the ancient world was not dying at 30. It was the inability to reach 30 in the first place. That heartbreak is what dragged the statistical average down, not a biological expiration date. This realization reframes our understanding of human progress. When we celebrate civilization, we point to towering skyscrapers, roaring jet engines, and rovers on Mars. While those feats are magnificent, humanity's absolute greatest triumph is far quieter. We stopped the children from dying. Clean water, vaccines, sterile hospitals, safe maternal care, antibiotics, and modern sanitation didn't invent old age. Longevity was always a part of our biology. What modern civilization did was build a bridge over the canyon of childhood, ensuring that a newborn infant actually stands a chance to see their hair turn silver. We are, every single one of us, the living descendants of the survivors who crossed that canyon in the dark.